Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished sailors of dangerous tides, we would like to welcome you again on board. After a long but much-needed respite from writing this series, we will be continuing our exploration of Great Lakes ships until November, where we finish this season off with the Edmund Fitzgerald for its 50th anniversary of her sinking. After that, we will be covering ships from the Cunard line and the lives involved with them. Today, we will be exploring the fate of the Ashtabula car ferry, a ship lost in the middle of the 1958 season, the last survivor of a fading industry. The sinking was not just a tragedy, but the end of an era for many. So climb aboard as we explore the Ashtabula car ferry on dangerous tides. Before we begin, we would like to note that this video contains mentions of a captain taking his own life following the sinking of the car ferry. If the topic of is uncomfortable for you, please click away from this video now. We care about the mental health of our viewers and followers, and it is important to maintain it as best as possible. Thank you. We begin our story with the construction of the Ashtabula car ferry, launched on May 12, 1906, by the Great Lakes Engineering Works in St. Clair, Michigan. Designated as Hull 19, the Ashtabula was initially to be named the James W. Ellsworth, after coal mogul of the same name, who is said to have developed the car ferry service. Hull 19 would eventually be named the Ashtabula upon the day of its launch. She had a length of 350 feet, a beam of 56 feet, a depth of 20.5 feet, and a weight of 2,670 tons. She was built with two coal-fired triple expansion engines, which had a top speed of 3,000 horsepower. Great Lakes Engineering Works would go on to enroll her into service in the home port of Detroit, Michigan. This was on June 25, 1906, re-enrolling under the Ellsworth Transportation Company just 3 days later. After serving her maiden voyage to Port Burwell in Canada, the Ashtabula would arrive in her namesake city in Ohio at 7 a.m. on Saturday, June 30th, 1906. The Ellsworth Transportation Company was a joint venture between the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Canadian Pacific Railway for the purposes of carrying coal to fuel locomotives owned by the latter company. The Ellsworth firm would eventually withdraw management on August 15, 1906, to be permanently enrolled in Cleveland, Ohio, under the Pennsylvania-Ontario Transportation Company. Despite the multiple changes of hands, the Ashtabula would lead a long and distinguished career, serving alongside the Matalan No. 1 from 1906 until 1932, and the Marquette and Bessemer No. 2 until her sinking in 1909. The Ashtabula would remain the only car ferry in service after the New York Central Railroad and the Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad ceased operations in 1930s. Considered the pride and joy of the city of Ashtabula, Ohio, the community at large would greet her return with the families of the crew. Having been a long-standing fixture of the city, it ran its 12,000th voyage across the lake in October of 1955. Despite it being unprofitable to run, the Ashtabula ran into the beginning of the 1958 season when a strike temporarily put her out of service for several months. Captain Louis Sabo, a well-experienced sailor, had served on the ship for 31 years at the time of the Ashtabula's sinking. His career on the ferry started out as a deckhand and was known to have a perfect record of service before the collision. On the morning of September 18, 1958, the ferry left from Ashtabula, clearing the lighthouse at 10:10 a.m., successfully delivering its cargo to Port Burwell before returning to Ashtabula Harbor. Due to the confusion over the signals given by Captain Sabo, a steam freighter by the name of Ben Morell rammed into the Ashtabula. Within 45 minutes, the Ashtabula sank under 27 feet of water. Fortunately For everyone involved, all 72 sailors and officers were rescued quickly with no loss of life, but the Morell would have to be towed upriver for repairs, costing $229,000. Meanwhile, the Ashtabula received a patch job from McQueen Marine Limited before being raised and towed to a nearby berth. While the crew and captain were fortunate to have been rescued from the Ashtabula, those investigating the collision weren't so lucky. An insurance adjuster for the Ferry was walking along the deck for inspections and fell down a large hole on November 16th, roughly 2 months after the collision. Captain Sabo, facing an inquiry from the Coast Guard over the collision with 3 charges against him, took his own life on December 10, 1958, just before the hearing from the Coast Guard. The judge presiding over the case decided that neither Sabo nor Captain Murdoch McQueen of the Morell were at fault for the collision. The owners of the Ashtabula, the Pennsylvania-Ontario Transportation Company, decided it would be too costly to complete repairs. In June of 1959, the Ashtabula would be towed to her home berth, where she would be cut up for scrap and loaded onto rail cars, likely the same ones she carried to and from port for so many years. However, it seemed even scrapping the Ashtabula had its own problems. The vessel, overloaded with water and its own weight, refused to be towed to berth. And there was a fire started after hot materials had fallen onto the wooden pilot house of the once staple of the community she served. The hull would be pushed into the scrapyard by October of 1959. The pride of Ashtabula would become nothing but a memory for the community that once showed up at harbor just to see a marvel of survival, engineering, and service. Thank you for joining us today on Dangerous Tides. We'd like to thank the researchers, archivists, and maritime historians for their efforts in preserving the history of these wrecks. And we dedicate this episode in honor of the crews and captains involved. May the fair winds guide you through dangerous tides.